This cabin was located in this county, but about 40 miles from here, and most of the land over there they referred to as New River. Everything was on New River. New River was known as sort of a brewing, whiskey-making place, and it seemed to me when I was growing up as a child, there wasn't a single weekly issue of the Clinton Courier-News that didn't have a picture of a still all busted up and 4 or 5 deputies standing around looking more grizzled than the moonshiners themselves. But it had been a pretty busy place when they were cutting the timber. As a matter of fact, they built a railroad in there from Scott County over around where Howard Becker lives. I had always thought to carry the coal out, but they say that it was built for taking out the timber. 6 or 8, 9 feet in diameter, some of the poplar were, so many people have told me. So what had happened, most of the timber had been cut out and the mines had slowed. And this was in the early 1960s. And someone told me, and I don't remember who, that there was an old log house way back at the foot of the mountain. And it was on the land company, the Tennessee Land and Mining Company, located, I think, in Middlesboro. And they said, I contacted them, and they said, well, you're welcome to get it because we'd like to get it out, because they were fearful of liability. Fox hunters and everybody would go in and build fires, and most of them had already burned. And I said, ask who it belonged to originally, and they told me this old gentleman by the name of General Bunch. And I looked him up, and he was living near, between Oliver Springs, Tennessee, and Wartburg. So he went over with me and told me the story. He was a child. I think he said he was 8 years old when it was built by his father, Prior Bunch. And he told me many times that he helped snake the logs in from the mountains to build the house. And it was as he said, there used to be a few people who lived in that area called Double Camp. In order to get there, you had to leave the main highway and go through the woods and the creeks, well, it was a river, as a matter of fact. First time I went over there, I had a retired judge, Judge J.D. Arnell, who had been county judge a long time, and he was working for me at the time. I was school superintendent, and he was in charge of all the buildings and all the transportation, this kind of thing. We get in the middle of the river trying to get to Double Camp, and the car flooded out right in the middle of the river. So I said reluctantly, you know, I was pretty young then, 20 and about 30, and he volunteered, and he beat me to the draw. He jumped out in the river before I could get there to go get help. So we finally got to the cabin, and I was very impressed with it. And he was telling me, I said, this was a pretty isolated place. And he said it was 12 miles to the nearest store, country store. And that was if you walked across the mountain, Cumberland Mountain. He said when they went to the store, they would leave before daylight, and it would usually be after dark when they got back, 25 miles or 24 or 25 miles round trip. And by the time that I started taking it down, there was pretty much infested with rattlesnakes and so forth. He said that, and my grandfather had told me this too, that the hogs, when people lived there, kept the rattlesnakes killed out pretty much. They would grab them and shake them and eat them, I think.